On the phone with me is author Karen Kondazian. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I guess I began my career at 8 on the Art Linkletter show, if anybody remembers that. I was one of those sort of precocious children, or you might say obnoxious. And I was chosen from my school to come on the show and talk to Art Linkletter. And I wanted to be a spy, and on the show I told Art Linkletter that I had decided to be an actress because I got to miss school and they fed us before the show, anything we wanted for lunch, and so I got all the free grilled cheese sandwiches and orange sherbet, and so I said, I'm going to be an actress. I've changed my mind. And so the strange thing is I continued that path. Went to school in England, a drama school, and then ended up off Broadway doing my first show, and then in Hollywood doing television and playing a lot of Italian moms and Greek moms and gypsies, psychics. And then I decided to start writing, and I became a journalist and acted at the same time, but I interviewed people in the show business, and then all of a sudden one day when I was in my 20s I read an article in Cosmopolitan magazine, How to Get a Man. Anyway, there was an article called Wild Women of the Old West or something like that. And it had a story about Charlie Parkhurst, which is the character, of course, I wrote about in my book. I mean, a real woman. So that's how I got to writing it.
Tell us a little about that book, The Whip. Well, your new book, The Whip.
Yes, it's called The Whip. And the reason it's called The Whip is because in the old days, in the 1800s, stagecoach drivers were called whips. They were like the rock stars of their time. And what fascinated me about the story was this is a story about a famous stagecoach driver who killed the famous outlaw Sugarfoot and was very well known during that period of time, very well respected, and he turned out to be a she. When they got her ready for her funeral, they were preparing her body, they discovered she was a woman who had a child. And all the doctors from everywhere, all over. This took place during the gold rush in a little city called Watsonville, California. And so nearby was San Francisco and Santa Cruz, some of those cities. So all of these doctors were coming to examine the body. They couldn't believe it because he had become very famous, and all these macho men couldn't believe that this woman had actually carried off this disguise for 30 years and had, killed an outlaw, and it was a very tough job to be a stagecoach driver. So it fascinated me. And I kept thinking to myself, how in the world could a woman, how do I say this nicely, sort of pee on the trail, with all these macho men around her, and how could she have her period, and how did she disguise her body? So these questions nagged at me, and I became sort of obsessed with her, and had to sit down and write the story, and I did, and it took 6 years and 27 drafts to do it. And that's the story.
And speaking of which, when I first heard that he was a she, kind of like you, I'm like, how? I mean, it's not like she was a young child. I mean, what is one of the ways that she was able to hide herself for that long of time?
Well, as far as there's no real research on that because when she died, she was, just one of the guys until she died. But what I surmised and the research that I figured out was that she wore these kind of boxy blouses, handmade blouses that I think she must have made.
Yeah.
And she always had a dirty face, which most of the stagecoach drivers did, because of course they were outdoors. They were up on the seat up there. And so, she wore a scarf around her neck, and Adam's apple. She must have pushed her voice down, lower. She also drank a lot, and she smoked a lot of cigars, and she chewed a lot of chewing tobacco, and she was a very good shot. So, I guess the guys must have thought, wow, who would have thunk it,
What kind of... sorry.
That's, and what I did, of course, was I took all the facts. She was the first woman to vote in America as a man, as far as we know. And she voted for General Grant. And the interesting thing is that he died exactly the same way she did.
Oh.
Same, cancer of the mouth and tongue. From, obviously, smoking too many cigars and chewing tobacco. Anyway, I took all the facts, and then I wove around all the facts a story of my imaginings. And of course my imaginings came from a lot of research and a lot of interviews. I went down to Watsonville and I talked to a lot of the people whose great-grandparents had supposedly known her. I got letters, and the New York Times had written an obituary about her in 1880.
Wow.
She died right at the end of 1879, December 28th or 9th, they're not sure, right in that area. And then the New York Times wrote a January, I think it was 8th or 9th, article about her. So she became a celebrity for a little while in her time. And she still is, and I wanted to sort of put her in the light. So I created love stories around her, and a lot of things what drove her to California, because she was from an orphanage in California. In the East, and she then went around the Horn to California during the gold rush, and that's when she took on the guise of being a man and doing stagecoaching. So I created, my version of why these things happened.
What was your favorite story or fact about her?
Real fact, you're saying?
Yes.
Probably that she actually took the care and courage and stamina to vote as a woman.
Yeah.
I wonder what she was, as a man, she was a woman voting as a man. And I was just thinking to myself, what kind of person would do that? What kind of woman? Probably what was she thinking when she did that? Probably thinking to herself, I wonder if I'm the first. I love that she did that. That she even cared.
Yep.
And other than that, I love that she killed Sugarfoot, the famous outlaw. She gave him warning. He robbed a stagecoach one time, and she said, you do it again, you're in trouble. And he did, and he got killed. She shot him.
What was your writing
process? Those are two really interesting things about her. And most of all, that, listen, when you think about it, she probably had no real friends. What would it be like to have nobody touch you for 30 years, to have any kind of intimate, whether it's physical or emotional, relationship? That's very lonely, yes?
Yes, very much. What was your writing process for this book?
Well, let's see. It's not a very healthy one. For some reason, I like to write. I think it's part of my theater background. I love to create at night. Theater's at night usually. So I would start around 8 o'clock at night, and then I sometimes would write until 3, 4 in the morning, eating a lot of carbs and coffee. And in fact, right now I'm on a big diet. I'm not heavy, but I'm trying to be healthy again. Because I finished the book last November. It was released November 1st. And so now I'm trying to, exercise and do all the things I didn't do for 6 years. Mm-hmm. I just sat behind a computer and wrote. And so that's kind of my working style.
Uh-huh. Is being an actress help you write the book, or did it make things more difficult?
Oh, I have a theory that an actor, if he has the stamina and the passion about a subject, are the best writers. Mm-hmm. Because it's the same thing that we go through, actors go through, that a writer goes through, which is that you have to find the backstory of a character. Mm-hmm. You are good at improvising a scene in case something. Lots of times in film and stage, a lot of things happen. Other actors forget their lines, props fall, telephones don't ring, and you have to improvise. So that's what writing is. It's taking a character and improvising around it. It's also, it's the feelings. We are very good at conjuring up feelings. We're athletes of the emotions. Mm-hmm. That's what an actor does. And I was able to use that as a writer to bring up feelings. That's why if you read the book, you will feel maybe her feelings, because that's what I tried to express. What it was like to live under that disguise. The good, the bad, and the ugly,
Speaking of acting, if they were to make your book into a movie, who would your dream cast be?
Okay. A dream cast would be Clint Eastwood to produce it, the guy, and probably Catherine Bigelow to direct it. She's the woman who is the only woman who's gotten the Academy Award for Hurt Locker, if you remember. Because she's so brilliant with violence. She makes it poetic, and there is a lot of violence in my book. Mm-hmm. And I would say as the cast, as Charlie would be. Do you remember Kate Blanchett playing Bob Dylan in a movie? I think it was called Don't Look Back. There were like 5 Bob Dylans in it, and she played one of them. All of them were men. 4 of the men who played it, and she was the only woman who played it, and she was brilliant playing a man. In fact, I think she got nominated for an Academy Award. I'd love Kate Blanchett to play it, or Kate Winslet. If she gained weight, she would be wonderful. She's, you have to be a brave actor to play this role.
Yeah, you would.
And you have to be a really fine one to be able to not make people laugh at you, that you're really carrying off the male guys, because other people were fooled. The audience had better be fooled too,
And your book, and I want to make sure, and I may be wrong on this, was it on the cover of Publishers Weekly or inside?
It was on the cover. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. It was a couple of weeks ago. It was featured on the cover of Publishers Weekly, which I don't know if anyone knows, but I was told it's like being on the cover of Wall Street Journal for a book, and it's really helped the book a lot. It's because that is what all the librarians, all the booksellers, many movie production companies look at, and I have no idea how it got there, and I'm very grateful. So it's been, particularly on Amazon, it's just been, selling a lot of books, and of course it's an e-book too. You can get it on Amazon. And may I say, if you don't mind,
that's fine.
Just in case anyone wants to look the book up, my name is spelled in an odd way. Everybody thinks it's with a C, Karen Kondazian, but it's with a K. So it's Kondazian.
Do you have any more plans on writing any more books?
Yes, actually, I've been told that if you don't start a new book right away, you lose the momentum because it's like being a long distance runner. And I'm working on a book now, the notes of it, called Looking for Jack Kerouac, and it's going to be a fictionalized memoir because I've had a very interesting life. I've almost died 2 times. I was almost killed once. I've met a lot of interesting people in my life. And why I'm calling it Looking for Jack Kerouac is when I was a girl, 13, 14, I was in love with Jack Kerouac. So I was growing up in San Francisco, and there is the famous City Lights bookstore that Jack Kerouac used to hang out at. So I'd go there with my guitar and my long hair, and I'd say, I'm looking for Jack Kerouac. And they'd say, oh, he's across the street. So I'd go across the street. And they'd say, no, he's at that restaurant. I'd go to the restaurant. I could never find him. I went to New York as an actress, and I was very near a little restaurant that he used to hang out at. Never found him there. And later I found out that Jack Kerouac loved 13, 14-year-old girls. So I was protected, you see. And all my life I've been protected, as we all are. I believe that, many times we want something, we wish for something, and usually we're protected because that we don't get it. And, the theme of the book is kind of that. But I'm going to fictionalize it, probably. It sounds like... Meaning, when I say fictionalize it, make another character, but tell most of the truth, but use another character in my guise.
What advice would you give someone who wanted to become an author?
You have to have a passion for your subject, first of all, because you could just give up very easily. I mean, as I say, I did 27 drafts of it. That means I rewrote it 27 times. And it took 6 years until I could let it go. Passion is number 1 for your subject. 2 is you have to really how do I say this? You have to be kind of disciplined, meaning you have to really sit down and choose, say you work at a regular job, meaning 9 to 5, and you have to take 2-3 hours a day where you would be watching television, and that's when you write. And you have to do it every day, maybe one day off. And that's what most writers do. Otherwise, you lose the momentum of it. And the other thing is that you have to find a space where there's not a lot of distraction. Whether it's a park, a little room in your house, particularly if you have family. You have to be able to dream a lot. Daydream.
Yeah. Are you or your book on any social networking sites? If so, which ones? What are their addresses?
The website of the book is thewhipnovel.com, THEWHIPNOVEL.com. And on thewhipnovel.com, you can go to a blog. We have a blog. There's a place you can click up above for the blog. There's lots of interesting stories about, famous women in the past, like a woman who was in the Confederate Army. She fought in the Confederate Army, and she survived, and she went home and had 3 children. I mean, there's all these interesting women. She went as a man. She dressed as a man, a soldier. Anyway, and so there's the website, the blog. I'm on. It has a Facebook, and you can go to Amazon or Borders online, and if you're interested, and check out all the reviews to see if it's your taste. And again, there's an ebook. There's ebooks, the Kindle and the Nook, I think it's called. And otherwise, it's in bookstores. I hope in some bookstores at least. I know it's going to be in Barnes and Noble, or you can order it from there. But anyway, check it out and see if it's your taste. One thing I have to say, there's some bad language in it. So if anyone is offended because that's how everybody spoke at that time. So just to, sort of give you a little heads up on that.
Is there anything else you would like to add or say to your readers?
I guess just finally, the river that runs through the book is really about forgiveness and, retribution and the question of forgiveness. I mean, I have a question to ask all the listeners. If someone horribly destroyed everything that you love in this world and swallowed you whole, could you forgive them?
Ooh.
And if you couldn't, if you can't, then how far might you go? And that's what the leading character, that's the theme of what happens to her.
That's a good question. Thank you so much, Karen, for the interview, and you have a great rest of the day.
Oh, Jill, you're lovely. It was great, and take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.